Korean Henry Rollins. Maybe not a bad title. So, Happiness. I've heard about this film through a lot of people, especially on the internet, because it's always mentioned as one of the most fucked up movies of all time. All I've heard about it was that there's a pedophile involved. That's it. So I thought, okay, maybe it's about a pedophile. But obviously, now that I watched the film, it's about a lot of people. And this is one of those movies that really fucks you up. It really makes you think about how you see life and how you see people. It really makes you think about what people are, how they become who they are, and if it's any good or any bad. Are people good at first? Are people really bad? Do these people exist around me right now? And they probably do. And if they do, what can I do? Can I do anything? It's, quite frankly, a really depressing movie, but that's the beauty of it. The film really is an absolute sheer descent into human disgust. Yet, nobody in this film is likable. Absolutely nobody. Every single person is despicable. They're unlikable. If you ever met them, and if you knew who they were and what they did, you would not like them at all. And I think that's the point. You got pedophiles, you got murderers, you got perverts, you got egotistical, absolute fucked up people. You got even really decent people doing kind of terrible things. Every single person is so unlikable. Even people you want to kind of sympathize with did something terrible. They have certain aspects of being themselves that are really unlikable. Like there's this character named Joy, who's probably the most sympathetic character throughout the film. She's always being shitted on. When she finally thinks she found love, it turns out that guy has another woman in his life. There's also her parents never really thought much of her. Her sisters kind of bash her from behind. Nobody really likes her. Even the guy she used to date kind of ends the relationship on a very negative note. But the reason she's also unlikable is because she's the one who breaks up with the guy in the beginning. So actually in the beginning, the first thing you see is her breaking up with the guy, and she's the one who's breaking up with him. So in the beginning, you already established this character as a very unlikable character, but throughout the film, the film makes you see certain sympathetic elements of the character. It's honestly a really fucked up way of introducing a character, but it kind of goes with the point. Same as any other characters in this film. When they're introduced, they're either likable or dislikable. But as the film goes on, the film slowly shows the opposite side of that character. If the character starts as a very dislikable character, you start to see his flaws and the parts that we could like him. If a character starts as a likable character, at the end we realize how terrible of a person they are. So in the end, everybody gets their share of bashing and praise. And it's such a fair amount of character development for every single character that every single person becomes very third-dimensional, very unlikable, but to a certain extent sympathetic. And every single character becomes a very good representation of what people are. Unlikable, sometimes absolutely terrible, but they all have some likable element to them. Every single person. Another strength of this film is that, honestly, it's really funny. It's actually really funny in the darkest way possible. There's this scene where, like, the pedophile character is talking with his son, and the son is basically the son is absolutely fascinated with the idea of masturbation, as we all are when we're 11. And there are these scenes where the pedophile talks with his son, and the conversation they have is absolutely uncomfortable. Like, the son's like, "So, Dad, what's coming? And the pedophile's like, well, coming is basically when your penis gets erect and it gets really excited and milky stuff comes out. Like it's such uncomfortable dialogue, but it's kind of funny to watch because you don't really see these kind of dialogue in films. And this is probably something that's actually happening in real life. Kids probably ask their dad or their mother about sex, and it's a very uncomfortable thing. So that's why people don't show them in movies, but this film has the balls to just say, you know what, this happens, let's just show it. And it's absolutely uncomfortable, but it makes the film so realistic. There's also the scene where Joy is having a phone call, and she's talking about the people who talk behind her back, and there's this brief moment where she's thawing a steak, and she beats the living hell out of the steak, and like that small brief moments are so funny, but they also represent so much of the character. The comedy's very character driven, but it's still dark, it's still funny, it still works very well. The film also, like I said before, gives enough decency to each character. There's certain aspects, or even just one aspect of each character that's likable enough for us to slightly relate to them to a certain extent, and even make them feel more realistic as a presence in reality. At the same time, that effect also emphasizes the disgusting parts of those characters, which makes the whole film effective overall. The point of the film is that people are disgusting, and by making them likable to the smallest extent, makes them feel more real, and thus it also emphasizes the negative parts as well. It's just really well done screenwriting. The film. And this is just my personal thing. I think the film is kind of making fun of 90s movies. Although it's made in the 90s. Because here's the thing with 90s films and most mainstream 90s Hollywood, this is what I feel personally. Certain films, especially Oscar-baiting movies, are very sentimental. They use really sentimental music. The ending's usually overly sentimental. There's a lot of overly sentimental films in the 90s, like I said, especially in the Oscar-baiting category. And I like some of them, but some that really irk me the wrong way. And I think this film is basically saying, I hate those films too, let's make fun of them. So, like the scene I mentioned before, where the pedophile is talking to the son, usually this conversation in other very sentimental movies would be something about, oh, Dad, do you really like Mommy? Like, it would be some really generic shit, and they will play, like, this really sentimental piano, score at the end of it. But in this film, at the end of absolutely uncomfortable moments, they play sentimental music, just like the movies that would play them in absolutely generic shit. And the film feels 90s. Stylistically, it's 90s, but the screenwriting is basically the total opposite of Oscar Beatty sentimental movies, and I think the film just works perfectly as a satire of those films as well. This is not to show the bright side of human beings, this is to show the decadence, and this film makes every single element work perfectly for that, message to convey itself. Yeah, man, the film, and like the acting's also really good. Seymour Hoffman, he was such a good actor, god damn it. And like every single person, they nail the unlikable part, they nail the likable part, every single person is great. I forget the name of the actress who plays Joy, but she's absolutely amazing too. Everybody's amazing. The characters are great, the story's fucked up but it's effective. The message is something that we should be seeing in films, but we don't see enough of it, that the world's fucked up, and human beings are an absolute fucked up mystery, and it would be better if we did not know about them. But you know what? Who cares? That's really the sad part. Like, at the end of the film, nobody really resolves anything. Nobody really changes. Some people get the justice they deserve. Some people get their ass kicked. Some people get some bad endings, but in the end, basically nobody changes. everybody kind of stays the same, and it's depressing as fuck. But it's so effective because the point of the film is that this just goes on. The cadence goes on. Nobody really becomes better. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. The film does kind of go really deep into the descent of humanity. And if you don't want to be depressed as hell, I recommend that you don't see this movie. But if you just want, if you're interested into just how much the film wants to portray that cadence, I would say you should definitely check this out. It's honestly a really well-made film. It's this close to a masterpiece. I feel like there are certain moments that kind of drag, and I feel like the film is way too dark for its own good at times. But you know what? It's a very good movie. 4 out of 4, easily. So yeah, happiness. 4 out of 4. I do not feel good right now. Bye.